Hi guys, welcome to another episode of BetterTech. I'm Yasir Rizwan, Sakib, and with me I have Ritesh Baldva. And so we'll be talking about the series that we are already doing on the AI and the utility of AI during software development and all of its phases. So Ritesh, so just introduce yourself briefly and let us know about yourself and the work you're doing.
For sure. Yeah. So, hi everyone. I am Ritesh, and I'm the CTO here at Revelio Labs. And primarily, the role sort of envisions like leading the engineering effort. But I like apart from doing that, I'm sort of like involved in sort of optimizing our data flow processes within the company. So Revelio itself is a very data intensive company in terms of the analysis that we do in terms of the insights that we want to show our clients, and they generally involve like handling like vast amount of data essentially, and we want to be able to do those things quickly and on sometimes on the fly for our clients. So understanding how these processes work and optimizing those are sort of the things that interest me the most, and I sort of work on. But obviously, I'm sort of my hands are into all the things that we're trying to sort of span out across the company uh, based on data engineering, software development, sometimes even talking to the data science teams, etc. Yeah.
So I was actually going through your profile, and you started as data engineer, and the kind of software that I imagine that you would be developing would be around data intensive application. And I can imagine the data pipelines you're building, and then processing that data, and then doing something with the data, or analyzing that data, or then generating some kind of analytics or forecasting kind of stuff. So take us through the journey. How do you, I mean, is there a place where you are using AI to do this more efficiently? For example, are you using uh, AI to probably enrich your data or do data corrections or detect data issues, that kind of stuff? Just take me through this process.
Yeah, so there are certainly like AI involved, obviously on heavily on the data side, right? So, for example, data in the real world has a bunch of issues. There could be missing data, and then the problem that we tackle a lot is that there are biases present in real world data, right? Because there's only a certain sample of the whole universe that's present, that is publicly available, that you can that's available to us on which we can trade. So even when you see these results, we have like models in place which perform corrections on top of this. But now, as you mentioned, like this whole thing like follows it's like a pipeline cycle, right? So first of all, that we have our ingestion flow, right? So which is responsible for collecting the raw data, which is like how things look exactly publicly available things. And we collect that data and ingest into Revelio's data warehouses essentially. And after that, obviously, the simple thing which every data pipeline has is like we have to perform a bunch of cleaning, make sure things look same everywhere. And those are like sort of deterministic checks which we can do easily. But after that, like it branches out into a star kind of pattern where different models based on the type of corrections or type of biases they are handled to deal with sort of handle the subsets of data they want to fix essentially. And part of this is about fixing the data itself. Part of that is about like augmenting the data with better insights, essentially, or the metrics which our clients are interested in about understanding the data, which we populate the data with. And after those predictions happen, it again sort of like comes back where we combine all those predictions together to sort of form something which we call the source of the source of truth tables within Revelio. And from there, the next journey of the data starts essentially where, how we deliver data to the clients. It could be through the UI, it could be through a simple like UI application where you can very quickly query the data and see what kind of insights you're interested in. Or sometimes, which some of our clients are very quant heavy. So they would rather look at the complete picture of the data. So we give them the complete data sets for which we create, and those get delivered via different mechanisms and databases or like S3 shares. So that's the complete life cycle. And the point which you touched on, where like AI becomes the most important, is sort of like where the things branch out for the prediction. And then there are certain models which only happen at the runtime when some client sort of says, oh, I want to look at this kind of data, but it still may have like an incomplete picture of the data. And there are certain models which actually are executed at runtime to correct for those biases on the sample of data someone is looking at. So those are the two sort of domains where the AI is extensively used, essentially in terms of prediction and augmentation of the data. So yeah.
Great to know. So, do you guys do regular software development along with data pipeline development?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that usually then
Yes.
you do software development to consume that data also. And
Exactly.
so, are there any avenues where you're utilizing AI to enhance your productivity? Or, for example, some
Yeah.
guys are using Copilot kind of thing and a few other techniques. So,
Yes.
what are the areas that you're
Right.
using?
So for sure, like as you already mentioned, like Copilot, right? It's a very good sort of a suggestive tool that you can integrate right into the code editor that you're using. So a lot of the team members have that integrated into their IDEs. I know one of like the college, like my colleague, like Patrick, he also uses Chat GPT as well directly. So, and I am also starting to use that, and it's sort of becoming very crucial to our workflows, especially for on the Chat GPT side for ad hoc tasks, right? Like where you just want to quickly throw around the script because someone asks something for a quick analysis, and it's not a part of the regular software stack, but you want to just do something on the side, bring up a quick analysis for someone. And that's where there are two kinds of modes of like AI-driven development. Like one is the Copilot driven and one is the Chat GPT driven for the ad hoc tasks, essentially. So, yeah.
So what kind of challenges are you facing while employing this, or is this a simple breeze?
No, it's not certainly a breeze. I think for Chat GPT, for example, for ad hoc tasks, it kind of becomes like a prompt engineering issue. Because let's say, you have to just read a certain files from S3 and just put them into a data frame and put them into a database and give them access to, I don't know, a certain number in the modeling team. It's like a simple task. But certain times, as you ask ChatGPT to write these things out, it obviously faces errors, right? And then you have to then reconvene back to ChatGPT that, oh, these are the errors I faced, and then it brings you back, oh, maybe you should try this out. So instead of you sort of ourselves writing the code ourselves, it sort of becomes more of a review process as someone else is generating the code. So it's yeah. So for the ad hoc task, it's a quick thing because if you have to go through that whole exercise yourself, you basically save a lot more time because the generation is taken care of by someone else. But you now have the more important task of making sure to review it. So I would say the attention span, where initially it was also spent heavily on development, now gets transferred to more of a review stage. Oh, like, okay, it's not working. Like, how do we fix it? And so that's the challenges for the Chat GPT style, like ad hoc tasks. For IDE-based things, which Copilot sort of like gives us, it is again kind of like a similar issue, but not in a complete sense. In the sense that it will give you good prompts essentially. So it's a good way to clear a mental block. Oh, I want to get started with this. Suggest me something really quick, and then you can get started with it. But Copilot is certainly not yet reliable if you have to get the best performance out of the system. And you have to be careful about what it has actually written out. It's really good at extending the strategy. Let's say if you have certain strategies written out in terms of a logical boilerplate, for example, and that you want to just reuse that boilerplate for a certain other part of your code, it can understand that sort of translation. And that's where like the speed really happens, that you don't have to mess around with it. It really understands like, okay, this matches the previous interface and I can just reconstruct it here as well. So in that sense, like a Copilot is also pretty useful in the normal software stack too.
So have you analyzed this thoroughly? Do you think you end up saving time or spending more time in finding the little issues that are hidden in the code?
I think, as I mentioned, there's like a certain, I mean, the idea of reviewing the code will always exist, like whether it's written by a human or an AI, because they are powering like production applications. I would say the time that was spent initially, like whilst getting started on something new or augmenting a fix, essentially, which people used to go to Google, go to Stack Overflow, and then try to find out like what the best answer is, how it can be integrated into my application, how do I change that piece of code that has been suggested by people. It really takes the burden off of that sort of the time that gets spent there. And in that sense, yes, it is a time saver. But I would still say you have to watch out for the logic that is being suggested. And sometimes those tiny mistakes, I would say it's like a review cycle thing, but just clearing that mental block for you where it just quickly suggests something for you to get started on. I think that's like a very big weight off any developer's shoulders, and they can get started very quickly.
Yeah, I think this will take some time to mature. I myself am not fully, because I've seen scenario where you go with first suggested solution. For example, if ChatGPT or Copilot is not there, we go to Google and find out a solution for something, and there is a solution. You go with that solution. But then if you have not done your complete R&D, that first solution may not be the optimal solution. So, and if somebody suggests you the first solution and it works, that may not be the optimal solution compared to if you do a proper R&D and look for all other options also.
It's not just like if it just works, it could be working. The other point could be it sometimes ends up being inefficient. And I'll be honest, like for example, just a simple case, just writing a sorting code, right? Like if you ask like ChatGPT or Copilot to suggest, give me a quick sort application. It'll end up, and I've tried this sometimes, it'll end up giving us snippets of code which tend to use extra memory. And quick sort is the kind of application which you can do without using extra memory, right? And the whole point becomes that, okay, in certain areas, those resources which are getting used in the code are really critical for us. And we may not want to just use that, as you mentioned, the first answer straight away. So you have to sort of watch out for things in that sense. That's true.
Right. So if you're a skillful person, you will use it intelligently. Otherwise, it may lead you to wrong solution. But probably not so.
Exactly. Yeah.
So where do you see the market trend is going with all these tools that are becoming available to developers?
Yeah, I think the market trends would be very are interesting. I feel like for senior developers, it's like a very helpful tool because they can this is the suggestion. I know what the strategy should be. These are the corrections I need to make essentially to just get this working in the correct way. So for them, for sure, like it's an amazing tool, and then I'm sure like a lot of senior developers are already like utilizing this. I know for certain people that they are actually utilizing it to the fullest extent. But I feel like there is a sort of a feeling for junior developers, which I'm sort of like scared about a little bit because it will lead to tendencies. If you imagine, sometimes you look at a task and you have confidence going in, oh yes, I will be able to handle it. But then you have to do it yourself without the availability of the AI. It would be sort of tricky for you. Oh, I never faced these issues essentially. So in terms of market trends, I would say that it would become like a good assistant for people, and not just for Copilot. it will have like way more users, like helping figuring out like what's wrong in your pull requests essentially, or helping you to understand documentation better, which would be insanely good. Like right now, I think it's not there completely, but oh, just give me a snippet of code which matches this documentation, and you can jump directly to it. Those kind of features would really, really, I think concentrate very quickly towards especially the skill developers, and it will increase their productivity amazingly. So for those kind of things, I think the adoption rate is going to be very high, and we've already noticed this. I know like a lot of teams, at least in the tech space on the West Coast, essentially, they are using it a lot. But in the finance space, for example, it's tricky because there are a lot more like compliance-based regulations which people have to adhere to. So the adoption rates might differ, but certainly like it's going to be something which is going to enter the tool set of all developers very quickly.
Right. So we are also a software development shop. We run a separate business also, and there are a few ideas that we are exploring, and they might be interesting for you also. For example, there are some very mundane, not very mundane, but very tasks where you can generate some. For example, from the requirements, as you said, that you can generate code. So using this ChatGPT kind of thing, a Copilot, you can generate a baseline code. So we thought that maybe from requirements, you can generate test cases also, functional test cases. So we were able to do that also. And from requirements, you can generate the acceptance criteria also, and alternate scenarios also. And I think those kind of area where you have the base requirement with you, you can generate this kind of help documentation, which are typically engineers are not very keen to write, or they tend to ignore those. And you can just take help to this.
I am a little bit, I mean, I have like mixed feelings about this essentially. So the issue is like it's very easy to write like less impactful and very noisy tests in the sense like, oh, let's say for example, I have a function written to just like, I don't know, pick the maximum element out of it. Do I need a test for that function? Not really. That can be fashioned by someone else. But like if there's like a very crucial piece of complex logic that's written somewhere for sure, because the AI would already know how the code behaves in that sense. And ideally, the best case would be that if it can generate fuzzy inputs for you, which is like the hypothesis testing, which, the production environment, which we tend to not observe during dev or something. Right? And it can show you like, oh, these are the test cases that I tried it out and it failed for those things. You think those are acceptable inputs, and it can help you drive those things better. But for now, I'm a little bit scared that people may utilize like a Copilot to just write like very large amount of tests which are not that useful, and they just increase the size of the code base by a lot, which makes it like less readable. And so if we can get towards like a very towards that channel where it's writing those meaningful tests which are responsible for handling like complex things, and also like direct developers towards fixing those things, for sure. That's going to be like an awesome addition towards that. But like I said, like low volume noisy or like high volume noisy tests is something like something to watch out for as well.
So with all of these positive things happening and people adapting to this thing and all of those apprehensions, where do you see the world is going? Are we going towards like all software being written automatically? We just say it and the software is out there.
Not really. You see, I think this whole concept then becomes a fact of like how these tools come up essentially, like where is the creativity coming from? And I mean, that's why like also in the space of like libraries and codes, there are licenses that exist, right? So I think the whole part of the innovation in like how new things come up, that still sort of resides, I think, with the humans. I haven't seen like truly like a very insanely complex and very beautiful written code like by Copilot yet, in very like critical applications that we have, for example. But as I mentioned, it will be aiding everyone to get to that point essentially quickly. So it would be interesting to see how that sort of transition happens. Because right now there's like a big gap, I feel like, in terms of where the most complex system stands and what Copilot is able to contribute to them. Yes, we have captured the low-hanging fruits, but I feel like the gap is still large enough, which needs to be crossed essentially before we can sort of make that claim that yes, it can. We can be in a state where we can trust the complete development cycle by AI itself.
Right. So, any last words, Ritesh?
Yes, I would. Last words, I would certainly like advise people to start using the tool. Like it's certainly helpful that they can, increase their productivity by a lot. But again, there's two facets to this. For senior developers, go for it. For especially for junior developers who are learning programming right out of the universities and something, I would still sort of recommend to them to gain a command of the language, use the tool in the right sense so that you also understand what's happening. Because as soon as more and more of this tool gets used, essentially there is going to be a high volumes of code that's going to be written out. But the most important aspect would still be that if something goes wrong, like how do you fix things? And for that, like understanding of everything is going to be paramount essentially. Still, like for the younger developers, I would advise that people write the code themselves to utilize this tool in a beneficial manner, and then start taking advantage of like, okay, how you can use this tool without losing the aspect of learning new things essentially. So yeah, that's basically the
So the
last
message is do not be fearful, but be cautious and be careful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ritesh. It was a pleasure having you on this talk. And see you later. Bye.
Bye.